The curious mind or the inquisitive mind or the simple mind, my mind was simple. There was nothing that I wanted to do to get better. There was nothing that I wanted to do to improve myself. There was nothing, I didn't assume that I was capable. If I can make you smile, I can make you happy. If I can make you frown, I can make you sad. Emotion in this sense goes outside in. I would put a star in the corner and circle it so I could go back to the book and reread this stuff if I was struggling with things. There's a lot of people that have these shadow personalities, shadow personas that they keep away from everybody else, but they're still there, they're inside, partly because they can't be in the present moment. So they use whatever to try to mask their ability to deal with what's really going on. Because what's really going on is today is all about brain power and how important it is to constantly be learning and growing and having experiences so that you can change for the better. So before I even begin and I get into our brain power, why it's good to continuously learn and grow. The one thing I do want to say before I begin is, and I don't mean to break this up into two very specific categories, but there are certain individuals in this world that have sort of a simple mind approach, right? And then there's the other half of the spectrum, and there's a lot of gray area, obviously, between these two. I'm going to wave, and I'm going to wave, I'm going to wave, I'm going to wave, I'm going to wave. And that's inquisitive mind or curious mind, all right? And so people are either A, on some level or another, and of course the gray areas still exist. Some people are just intuitive, they're curious, they're explorative. What happened there? And other people are they know what they know, and after a certain point in life, it's really kind of about work and family, and sticking to their tribe, and the exploratory stuff and the curiosity and the inquisitiveness just isn't really kind of part of who they are. Now, those are extreme examples, okay, from one end to the other. And what I want to try to do is kind of explain what happens to a person who is adventurous and willing to try things and learn things and go places and do stuff that is maybe not something that they grew up with in their family or in their culture or whatever, but they realize that it was a must as a result of sort of the lack of productivity and the lack of change in their lives. I'll go back. I'm going to backtrack a little bit and tell you a little bit about my early stages, way before I became curious about anything, or I tried anything, or I did anything new that got me outside of my comfort zone. And some of you already know this story, but I want to kind of fill you in here a little bit. So I was, I was born in Rhode Island, and I was 8 pounds, 7 ounces. I don't know, 4 ounces. Who knows how many ounces? And my young parents, they had me when they were in their 20s. And so almost out of the box, I was not in Westerly, Rhode Island very long. I was down in Fort Knox, Kentucky. So and this is in the 60s, all right? So, Dr. Spock was was it Spock? I think, not the one from Star Trek, but same name. He was sort of the go-to guy when it came to how to teach your kids, how to be, and I couldn't even tell you, I was so dang young. I have no recollection of any of those early days when my parents were trying to figure out how to get me through the world, how to teach me how to, be a young boy or whatever it was. Waving to you. So anyway, to make a long story good, we moved quite a bit out of the box. And so for me, almost immediately, kind of based on my experiences of going from Rhode Island to Kentucky to Hawaii to Rowayton, Connecticut to Syracuse, New York to Cumberland, Rhode Island to Trumbull, Connecticut, right? So, and my father was away a lot on his job, so it was me and my two sisters for the most part, and they were early on they were just little kids, and I was just a little boy. And so my assumption of myself going through those trials and tribulations as a kid, and getting, I'm in a new school system. I got new neighbors. I got new friends. I've got all kinds of things going on. At one place, we only lived in one house for 9 months. That's how often we were kind of flying around. And in 5th grade, I settled in a town called Trumbull, Connecticut. And I lived in Trumbull from 5th grade through high school. And then I went off to the URI and tried to meander my way through that. But when I was young, I was extraordinarily insecure. I was not athletic. And my brain was telling me these things that I thought were true. And by the way, I wasn't sophisticated enough or smart enough, obviously, or I didn't get any intel from teachers or coaches or parents about, hey, by the way, you're having a difficult time right now because we moved a lot. And you had to make new friends all the time. And because you were small, and I had the speech impediment that I inherited from my father, that my father inherited from my grandfather, called cluttering. Now, I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know if it was stuttering or stammering. But I knew that I had a difficult time communicating with people. So I automatically thought for a good part of my life that I was stupid. Pretty convinced that I was not capable of keeping up with other kids, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So at that point, I had a simple mind. All right, if you're going to categorize me in the curious mind or the inquisitive mind or the simple mind, my mind was simple. There was nothing that I wanted to do to get better. There was nothing that I wanted to do to improve myself. There was nothing. I didn't assume that I was capable. I don't even know how the heck I was almost held back in third grade because my grades as a second grader, I was supposed to go to third grade. I think, kindergarten, I was okay. I was good at, whatever we were doing there. And then I'm not sure if it was they were going to keep me back in second or keep me back in third. But my parents got together with my teachers, and I did some summer school. I mean, think about it. How old are you when you're in third grade? You're like 15 minutes old. So I'm small, and I'm not athletic, and I have a speech impediment, and I've moved a bunch of times. And, I don't know what my parents thought of me, because when I was really young, when I was 1 and 2, my mother told me that she would have full-on conversations with me as a 2-year-old. Full on. Like my vocabulary was 10 times what both my sisters were at that age. Because she just assumed, well, okay, this kid is just chatting away. I don't even know where he's learned half of these words. And as soon as I got to school, I think a lot of it had to do with a social thing with like different kids coming in from different parts of town and having to interact and how to make friends, and didn't know how to do all that. And of course, I became a target right away because of the speech thing. So I became more and more insecure, and I became more and more frightened, and I became more and more overwhelmed by what was happening to me. So for me at that time, there was no way for me to try to excel at anything, And look, I had my mom and my 2 sisters around, so there was a lot of, feminine energy in the house. Nothing wrong with that, of course. It's just that my dad was on the road Monday through Friday for the most part, for most of my life. Just that was his job. And so I was living in a simple mind phase. I would say from school all the way, first grade, yes, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, for sure, sixth grade, seventh and eighth grade, ninth grade, I began to fake it. Grades still weren't very good, but I was able to cope. I was able to begin to make friends and function. But for the most part, there wasn't a whole lot that I was doing, maybe that other kids were trying. Like I didn't play any musical instruments. I kind of played touch football. I tried out for the basketball team in junior high school, didn't make it. There was a lot of disappointment, a lot of failure, a lot of stuff that was reinforcing how I felt about myself as a kid. It just from the inside looking out, it just felt like all the other kids were doing better than I was, and a lot of them were. I mean, they were performing better in school, and they were part of teams. I do remember that I liked gymnastics in junior high school. That was one area as a kid that I was drawn to, and I remember in gym class I was okay at it, and I remember it was my first A gym. It was like that semester. It was the first A I ever got in my life. And it was a physical thing. What a surprise. Sign of the future, maybe, eh? You never know. Waving to all of the happy, shiny people. And so that was a high point. And I remember that there was a, and now keep in mind, for the most part, from the moment I got up to the moment I went to bed, I was severely sad and depressed and disappointed and overwhelmed. And I couldn't communicate very well with folks. All right. And my grades were C- Ds and Fs. That's how it started, people know. And of course, I went to summer school almost every year, and that was just so that I could move on to the next grade. But I did have this physical thing that I enjoyed, which was gymnastics. And I remember the first time. Now listen to this. This is crazy, and I don't know if I've told that many people this. I went ahead, got outside of my comfort zone, and I asked my parents if it was okay for me to sign up for a gymnastics competition on the weekend. Like I volunteered to go to the school that I hated and I was depressed in quite often, and participate in a gymnastics event. Now you could sign up for 4 events. I think it was floor and pommel horse and rings and parallel bars. Now I signed up for pommel horse and tumbling. I think tumbling. It was pommel horse, tumbling. I don't think they had rings. Floor, pommel horse, and I didn't sign up for the parallel bars, but I signed up for 3 others. And you're allowed to do 3 out of 4. So now think about this. This is crazy, but I didn't get a first, second, or third place in any of the things that I signed up for. And in gym class, I had done the parallel bars, but I felt like that was my weakest event. Now, of course, I'm competing with other kids who were really good at this stuff, right? And that's why I don't know if I came in 4th or 5th or 6th. Who the hell knows what I came in? But all I know is I didn't go home with a ribbon in those 3 things I signed up for. And the freakish thing was I was so bummed out. And the fact that I can even remember this is crazy. I was so bummed out that I didn't win anything. I went to one of the supervisors and I said, "Hey, is it okay for me to try another event?" And they said, "Okay." And I said, "Okay, what was left?" And that was the parallel bars. So I wasn't very good at them, and I hadn't really done them much in school. So I sat there and I watched a bunch of other kids perform. Right? My brain said, A, go do this event, which is a freak show because I was afraid to do anything ever on my, I don't even know if my parents were there. I don't know if they just dropped me off. I have no memory of my parents being there, to be honest. So nothing in the first event, nothing in the second event, nothing in the third event. So I asked if I could participate in a 4th event that I wasn't very good at, and they said yes. So I just sat there and I watched like 5 or 6 kids do it. And so my incredibly insecure mind, my simple mind, for whatever reason, made a shift. Wave and wave and wave and wave and wave. And I was willing to at least get on there. Like every time I think about this, I think, why would I just would have put my tail between my legs and gone home. And you failed at all 3. I mean, I didn't really technically fail. We all know it at this point in 2024, that if you try anything and you don't win, it doesn't matter. You friggin' showed up and you had an experience and hopefully you learned from it. And that's obviously what was going on. But the fact that I would volunteer for a 4th thing, and I watched these kids and I went, okay, there's that move. You roll here and then you kind of do a shoulder stand and then the dismount. I watched a bunch of guys do dismounts. I go, okay, da-da-da. And so this is the God's honest truth. I got on these parallel bars. I learned however, to mount on the bars. And this is junior high school gymnastics, okay? I'm not like, doing flips over the bars. But whatever I did, and I'm on the parallel bars making it up based on what I watched other kids do. I took a little bit of his routine, a little bit of that routine, a little bit of this routine. And I remember the one part of it, I don't remember much, but I remember that I made my way into a shoulder stand on parallel bars. I don't think I've ever done that before in my life. And I did the dismount and I came off and I went, oh, good, I didn't embarrass myself. I'm glad I did it. I got first place. It was like crazy, man. Just completely crazy. So one little event like that doesn't change it forever. I mean, I'm still getting, C minuses, D's, and F's in school. And, then I went off to high school. And of course, I go to high school and I feel a little bit more comfortable. I've got some friends, you know what I mean? I'm not so insecure anymore. My grades improved ever so slightly, but still from junior high school to high school, there was tremendous insecurity. There was a grand unwillingness to do different things, to try different things. All right. And so I was living small. my simple mind, the way I was thinking about life, the fact that I didn't have any really good intel or strategies or techniques or methods that were taught to me through mentors or peers or whatever. I went into high school and I broke my tib fib 2 weeks before my first year in high school. So now I'm in a massive brand new high school, and 2 junior high schools were coming together to be in this. So now there's a lot of kids that I've never even seen before who live on the other side of town who went to another junior high school. And again, up the ante on the fear, up the ante on the depression and the sadness and the insecurity, because that all, here I am a little bit older, and now I'm walking around school trying to make my way from class to class on crutches. Like, when the bell rings, kids everywhere, and here I am, ka-dink, ka-dink. And I was often late for class, but then I got, I had the crutch excuse. So I would have to say that still at that point, I'm still in the simple mind phase. There was this one little incident in junior high school where I decided to, get on the parallel bars after, not succeeding in the other 3 events, and having that moment. But these are fleeting things. It wasn't like I had this satori, as the Japanese say, sudden moment of enlightenment, like ding, like that light over my head. That not a thing. Still in a place where I was really struggling and having a difficult time. And then somehow, look, I was on the football team. A lot of you know I was a tackling dummy. I don't even know why the coach kept me on the team, because he needed somebody for the other players to run over, which is basically what happened to me more often than not. And here's the other thing. One of the reasons why I never played was I couldn't remember the plays. I couldn't remember, okay, you're going to do red ball 3, anchor 7, and, I was a tight end, which was probably not a good position for me. I just sort of volunteered for that. And I would forget the plays. And which was super embarrassing. The coach would scream and yell at me, Horton, you were supposed to go down out and long. You were supposed to block on that play. You were supposed to da-da-da. And I didn't know. I didn't have the capacity I didn't want to learn it. I was just like, I was okay with being on that team and just floundering around and being shocked every time we got out in the field that I didn't get kicked off the team. And I would say, those last years in high school were as brutal as those years as I was a little kid traveling all over the country when my parents moved. Things didn't really start to change until I got off to URI. And I remember having a conversation with my Uncle John, who was on his wedding day. And he sat me, on his wedding day, we were out in the parking lot, and he said, hey, look, I know you've had a really rough life. Your parents, my father and my Uncle John were brothers, have told me how tough it's been for you. And he says, hey, look, and I thought Uncle John was cool, and he's still around, and he comes out to California, stays with us all the time. And this little conversation that I'm sure he forgot about the second he was done telling me. But he sat down with me, bench warmer, never, when I played. What's that say? The bench was never warmer than when I played. Yeah, dude, I'm with you, bud. But this conversation, because, here's this guy at his wedding day, my uncle, who's taking all this time to sit me down. And I never had a conversation. I mean, God bless my dad. He just didn't know how to have these kind of conversations with me. He'd go, come on, what's wrong with you? Let's go. You can do it. Try it. Thanks, Dad. He did what he could based on what he knew. But John was a different kind of guy. He was a bit of an intellectual. He went to UPenn. He was a bit of a brainiac. Talk about inquisitive and curious. John was that kind of guy. Like, here I am having a conversation with an individual who has the kind of brain that I don't have. But because he's sitting me down on his wedding day to kind of talk me through, because I was going to go off to college, and he knew all the trials and tribulations I was having up to that point. And he basically said, you have an opportunity to reinvent yourself, because there's not a single person on this campus who knows who you are, what you've been through, and how tough it's been for you. So he said these magic words to me. And he said, I want you to be a great listener. All right? Don't start throwing around opinions about things you don't know about. Don't start, because I was a clown. I was a clown since, I was a little kid. And I'd always use my silliness and my physical goofiness and my, and later on when the speech impediment slightly got better, because I worked on it. I would read books and magazines and newspapers on a tape recorder, and I would listen to how I would read them, and that was how I kind of got over it. A lot of people who have speech issues never do, But it was so overwhelming and so crushing and so brutal for me. It prevented me from really wanting to try anything and do anything. And it kept me, with a very finite group of friends, because I didn't want to have to try to communicate with new people and embarrass myself again, right? So it was really hard. So, John just gave me that and a bunch of other advice. So I went off to the University of Rhode Island, and I kind of kept to myself, you know what I mean? And I kind of just sort of looked around, and I made sure that I went to class. I still wasn't a very good student. I mean, I was getting, I think I had a 2.8 average or something. I think my best was a 3.2 one semester or something. But, at that point, when you get beat up enough and things are hard enough for so dang long, age itself, just aging through it a little bit, kind of helped me. And then one of the techniques that I used to do with my speech thing, I had two techniques. One was checking to see how nervous I was. And it was really those nerves that caused that to happen quite often. And so I would tell myself, okay, you're in a situation, you don't know who these people are, maybe you do. Slow down and make sure that you're as specific and as articulate as you can be in the situation. I had to say that to myself over and over again before I had conversations with folks. And a lot of times it worked, and that was technique one. Technique two was to make fun of myself, be self-effactive if I did it. And I still do it to this day every once in a while. Like if I do that, I'll go, hold on, let me try that again. What I meant to say was, I was curious where you guys were going after class, lunch. You know what I mean? And so I would put on this little character, and I still do that. I've been on stage in front of thousands of people and had a little speech thing, go out, right? And I would make fun of myself. Like you look at, this is not a political thing by any means, but President Biden's been dealing with this stuff forever. And, a lot of people give him a hard time, like it's some kind of mental thing, but he's been fighting the speech thing, and he's never really completely been able to get over it. And I don't know why. It's just maybe his was more severe than mine was, or maybe he didn't try some of the techniques that I tried. I don't know. But those two techniques helped me, Slow down, my friend. Let's think about what we're going to say before we say it. And then just make sure that you pick specific words, get the sentences ready in your head, and then speak. Or if it happens, whatever, have some fun with it. And that seemed to have worked for me so far. So when those techniques kind of kicked in, my simple mind, is that the reason why that band named that? My simple mind began to expand a little bit. It began to open up to things that I felt I would want to try. So, when it actually started to kick in high school, I joined the theater club, and I was in 2 plays, and I had tiny little parts. But I found a community of people that were accepting to me, the theater folks, at Trumbull High School. And they were all really awesome. And like I said, I had tiny little parts, but I felt like I was part of a community. I didn't feel so insecure. And the interesting thing, like a lot of singers that have speech issues, when they sing, the speech impediment goes away. When you learn the lines of another character, then I didn't have any problem with it because I already knew what I was going to say in advance. Because that's what the character was supposed to say. So the character does not stutter or stammer or have cluttering. And that was a real revelation. I don't know what that first word was. Anyway, and so off to URI, and my speech thing began to improve because of the work that I was doing on my own to make that better, and I played tennis, and I did some intramural sports there, and met some other people. I love playing basketball, and so I began I was telling myself based on what I had been and all the struggles that I had, that, and especially my conversation I had with my Uncle John, this is a new opportunity for you, my man. And so if you really want to live, then you better try some things. And a lot of it stemmed also from the early stages of my personal development work. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 books I'm going to show you that had a huge impact on my life. So the reading, writing, and arithmetic and history and science and math, which is the same thing as arithmetic, that I was getting in school, was just a bear and just a struggle. And I loved history, and I loved geography. These were classes that I took, that I didn't have in high school that I thought were kind of fun. History is still something that I'm very fascinated about. I love, political science a little bit. I was kind of a fan of that as well. But, a lot of the other classes that I had to take, I struggled in still. And those were usually C's and D's, and that's why I had a 2.8 GPA. But, so, for me to get away from having a small life, to having a life that was filled with a lot of angst and a decent amount of sadness and depression and frustration and fear, the more I got outside of my comfort zone, the more things began to change, the more my mind opened up, the more my brain was willing to sort of take on. And I don't have, there were two books that the first two personal development books, and I've talked about personal development a lot in the past, and the two that I started with, and I can't remember the author, I want to say it's like Richard Bach, maybe Richard Bach, and I have a Richard Bach book here. And it just, it's one of these things where, okay, everything I'm doing still, I'm having little moments of glory, but for the most part, it's just a struggle. It's just really hard. And I think that's the kind of the trouble. I think a lot of people are still there. And the reason, I'm going to get into sort of where's that? Hold on. I just want to read this. This is from an article that I pulled up. And this has to do with exercising. And this is kind of where I was. And maybe this isn't completely applicable here, but I'm going to wait. I'm not going to read that yet. What I want to do is hello. Can we rewind? Can we start over? The first two books, could have been Richard Bach, were Looking Out for Number One and Your Erroneous Zones. And what I was reading in these two books from the same author, I had never encountered any of this stuff before. It was basically saying, and maybe you've heard me say this before, the stuff that you're doing and the reason why you're struggling and sad and you can't find solutions is because you're doing all these simple mind things. Like I'm just stuck in a box. I'm unwilling to explore new ideas, new theories, new techniques, new people. And so of course you're going round and round and round. In this place, why don't you try X, Y, and Z, and don't be so attached to the outcome? And you've heard me say that a million times, and just see what happens, and then take into account what it is that you thought you learned, even though maybe it didn't go very well. Because if it didn't go very well, that's perfectly okay, because you're learning something. You had an experience. You didn't say no. All right, you said yes to this thing where you were mildly curious, and if it resonated with you, well then keep doing that, or keep going there, or keep trying these things, or keep saying these, or keep communicating in this way that we're showing you in this personal development book. And a lot of the personal development books that I first started with were very spiritual in nature, and some of these books I'm going to show you here in a second are like that as well, especially the M. Scott Peck stuff, which is pretty cool. So here I'm in this phase, little kid, junior high school, partway through college, whatever, confidence was going up, but still going nowhere. I mean, honestly, it was just not a fun time for me in general. I mean, I had a couple girlfriends and I had some fun friends and we all smoked some weed and drank some beer, but it was, kind of pathetic, really. I was exercising. I took a weightlifting class. Many of you know about that. And my GPA went up that semester, and then I stopped taking the class, ended, the course was over, and the GPA went back down again. I wonder what that's all about. All right, so I'm just going to show you now, halfway through this little conversation, some of the books that I have read along the way that have had a massive impact on me. And I still practice a lot of the things that are in all of these books. And the big picture, the 11 laws that will change your life, it's basically a conglomeration, not even a real word. It's a combination of a lot of the things that I've learned in a lot of these books. So are you ready? So here we go. Here's the very first one. And this is no surprise. And this is in no particular order. I just stacked them up. M. Scott Peck. This edit, when it first came out, was a very famous book, New York Times bestseller, and so M. Scott Peck was a pretty powerful spiritual leader back in the day, but there was a lot of personal development in that book. And he also did Further Down the Road Less Traveled and the Road Less Traveled and Beyond. And I even wrote M. Scott Peck a letter that I still have, and he wrote me back. It was incredible. And he was a big smoker. He talked about it in his books. And he passed away of lung cancer. Let me just read some of these chapters, man, just so you get a sense. Look how yellow it is. These pages are so old. This thing came out in 1978. Where were you in 1978? Problems and pain. Right out of the box. Delaying gratification, the sins of the father, problem solving in time, responsibility, neuroses and character disorders, escape from freedom, dedication to reality. The chapter titles alone. Deference, the outdated map. Openness to challenge, with holding truth, balancing, healthiness and depression, reincarnation and rebirth. Oh my gosh. Love defined, falling in love, the myth of romantic love, more about ego boundaries, dependency, self-sacrifice. Love is not a feeling, the work of attention. Gosh, dang it, man. The risk of loss, the risk of independence, the risk of contentment, the risk of confrontation. Love is disciplined. Love is separateness. Love and philosophy, the mystery of love. Oh, I'm going to reread this sucker, man. So good. All right. That's number 1. What's next? Here's Richard Bach. This thing is a classic. The Bridge Across Forever. And this is not a, it's a story. It's a novel. But there's personal development in it, you know? I mean, it's amazing. When did this book come out? Holy crap. This is ancient. And by the way, there are so many. We're in this good stuff. And this takes me all the way back to college, you know, junior high school and college. Let's see here. 1984. All right, 1984. So I read this book after college when I lived here in California. Yeah. It's awesome. There you go. Yeah. Good one. Nice little novel. All right, next. Richard Carlson. I got to actually know his wife. Don't sweat the small stuff. He had so many of these. Don't sweat the small stuff in love. Don't sweat the small stuff in work. Don't sweat the small stuff, you know, in X, Y, and Z. But his first one was just don't sweat the small stuff. And his wife is still around. Christine. You can see her name is on there as well. And these are really simple, fun, easy books. I don't know why. I have a little note here. Share on insight. So I must have thought that was an important chapter. I'm a big fan of his. I read all his stuff because it's just simple and easy. You know, there you go. Richard Carlson. Don't sweat. This one is Don't Sweat the Small Stuff in Love. Why did I get this one? I just did that one. And then I was single and miserable because I wanted a partner. And so I got that book. And it just gave me a brand new perspective on you know, it taught me why the relationships I was in sucked. Because I was going after the wrong women for the wrong reasons, which a lot of people still do. But a lot of people do that and they marry that person and they have children. Oops. You know what I mean? Harder. Life is harder. And so thank God this book here is partly why I waited and waited and waited to, you know, for the right person. And that right person I live with now. We're madly in love, me and that Shauna Horton, formerly. Yeah, he's a good man. This is good stuff. Richard Carlson. What else we got? Eckhart Tolle. Maybe a lot of you know this book, The Power of Now. Super important. You know what I mean? I always talk about the power of now and being in the moment. Like, look at all these. That's in there. Right there. That's a little something. What's that? Here's why. This chapter is called Nothing Exists Without the Now. And then I also have another, what else do I have here later in the book that I folded over that I thought was important? Where'd you go? Oh, there it is. Let's see here. No wonder. Freedom from unhappiness. Freedom from unhappiness. You see what I did there? That was one that I wanted to go back to. Eckhart Tolle. He actually came out to California, and I was supposed to go see him speak, but I couldn't make it, and I would have loved to have done that. And he's written a bunch of books, obviously. I've got others of his here, but didn't want to break them all out. Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point. Now, this guy wrote a book, and this phrase, tipping point, it's become part of the lexicon because of Malcolm Gladwell, and he's written so many books. Here I have, look, I've got this. I've got this something here. This is about 3/4 of the way through the book. What was this chapter about? The power of, hold it, the power of content. Yeah. Oh, wait. I'm just going to read. I'm going to read what I highlighted in this book just to see what this is. All right, drum roll, everybody. Here we go. What is it? Oh my God! Look at all this. Look how important I thought this was. Look at this whole page. Look what I did. Let's see. Oh no. Let's see here. I don't know what the emotion goes inside out. Emotional cognition, though, suggests that the opposite is also true. If I can make you smile, I can make you happy. If I can make you frown, I can make you sad. Emotion in this sense goes inside. Emotion in this sense goes outside in. I don't know why I did that. Yeah, look at this. I would even do stuff like this. Look at this page. I would put a star in the corner and circle it so I could go back to the book and reread this stuff if I was struggling with things. Yeah. And Malcolm Gladwell writes about all kinds of things. It's not purely personal development. But the tipping point, I think it's a must. How little things can make a big difference. Right? So look at me. What are the little things? I go to an acting class. I try some stand-up at midnight in a crappy little stinky club out in Burbank. Whatever. I started exercising just because I want to meet girls. Little things, little tiny things that all bunched together, and then P90X happened. Now, if I hadn't done the stand-up, if I hadn't gone to the acting classes, if I hadn't started working out, I'd be living in a van down by the river for sure, right? So I would just do these little things, and I wasn't always consistent with them, and I wasn't very good at them a lot of times, and I just stopped caring. I just started saying yes and stopped saying no, because I was trying to kill my simple mind by injecting various situations and books and new people because I didn't want to live that way anymore. All right. Romancing the Shadow. Massive book for me. Really, really important. I took a course with Stephen Wolf. See him down there? Stephen Wolf. So the story behind this one, right? So hope you don't mind. A lot of underlined stuff in here. Look at all the underlining. So I was living in Santa Monica in an apartment that I ended up living in for 20. I underlined almost everything in here. Oh my God. Wow, look at that little star I put right there. Right? Yeah, it must have been important. Yeah. Grocery store, 10 o'clock at night, came back. There was a flyer in my bag from the grocery store. Meet Stephen Wolf for a free seminar on learning about yourself or something. And I took the flyer and I threw it in the trash. And I'm in my kitchen, my crappy little kitchen that was the size of my phone, in a tiny little apartment with a view of a convalescent home. Some voice, something snapped, a synapse inside of my brain said, go back into the garbage can, pull the flyer out and see what it says. Just see what it says. Like, I would never do that. I'd just throw it away and move on. But something, there's been a point in my life where I had, enough little things, I did enough little things that said, don't do that. Just go to the trash and pull it out. And so I saw the date, and of what it was. And it was like about whatever, 5 or 6 days later, and just, just show up. I didn't have to call a number. I didn't have to register. I didn't have nothing. And it was more than walking distance. It was like an extra two more blocks away from the grocery store that I used to walk to from my apartment in Santa Monica. So I go to this guy's thing, and he's in a circle. There's about 25 people in this circle, and he's got it set up. There's a light that goes down in the center of the room, and there's one seat left. One. It wasn't like I registered and I got that seat. There's just a bunch of seats, and I sat in that seat. And I listened to this guy, and I'm like, wow, I need this badly. And so you had an opportunity to sign up, and I don't remember what it cost, but it cost something. An 8-week course where he runs you through the course. You bring the book. It's like you're romancing the shadow Bible. And I sat there with, I don't know how many people signed up, 8 or 9 or 10. And we're in his he was a psychologist, a psychiatrist. And we just went through this course. And he taught us how to communicate and problem solve. And it was this neat little technique that was I still use to this day. I think I even mentioned it in the Power 4. I mean, in the big picture, the P90X. But 22-minute hardcore. How many things have holy crap. And it's just a phenomenal problem solving technique. Now, that wasn't the only thing in the book, but it was just something that I so desperately needed, because I was always stuck in the problem. I was always like meandering and wondering and hoping and not figuring out, like not asking myself why I feel how I feel based on what's going with me. And then saying, okay, well, what are the 3, 2, 5, 1, 8 things that I can do? What are the next 5 steps so that I could just at least begin a process that moved me forward through this freaking angst, through this depression, through this crappy relationship, with this lousy life of mine, right? Simple mind, like, and because of a book like this, because of a course that I took from a guy that I think I pulled a flyer out of the trash, like that seems like a very little thing. And at the time it was, and at that time I had no idea that it would have any value whatsoever. None. Like, how can I know? But I just did it. And I sat there in that seat, the last one, and I signed up for this thing. And then I was in part of so what that course was about was like, we're going to learn how to do this thing. We're going to learn how to communicate with different people and figure out how to solve our problems. And then we're going to come back week after week, because we formed our own group. Like some of us who were in that class formed our own group, and it went on for 2 years. And after 2 years, I had to quit the group, because I noticed that a lot of people that were in the group were just there bullshitting. Like they would come in, I go, here's what's going on. Here's how I want to resolve it. And like the next week I'd go, how'd it go? And they go, well, I was gonna, but I didn't. Like, what are we here for? Like, like with me, what's the assignment? Think about it. This guy, the guy who didn't want to do anything, the biggest procrastinator in the world. Like, okay, all I have to do is X. I got to text somebody. There was no texting because it was a long time ago. Like, what action do I have to take between this group thing on a Tuesday night and the following group? And I would go, yeah, nothing really developed, because, but I did what I said I was going to do. And week after week after week, I had a different perspective about how to be and how to grow and how to change and how to improve my life, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, relationships, all of it, right? This thing is gold, people know. Romancing the Shadow, Stephen Wolf. Next, I've talked about this book many, many times. The 4 Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. And if you say his name too fast, it sounds like Dom DeLuise, not Dom DeLuise. And if you don't know who Dom DeLuise is, then you should probably Google him. He was an actor, a character actor, very funny. And I was his carpenter for a summer. Different story on a different day, all right? And then one of the 4 agreements is do your best. And I stole it. And I added, forget the rest. That's where it came from. This one phrase that is trademarked, that's on T-shirts, that people say around the world, because I picked up this book from Don Miguel Ruiz called The 4 Agreements. Do you want to know what the other 3 agreements are? Are you ready? Here we go. All right. Count that. Hold on. Oh, my God. I'm just not ready for prime time. I'll get there. I swear to God. Oh, my gosh. Hold on. Golly. So sad. Right here on the back cover. Idiot. Be impeccable with your word. Number 1. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Number 4. Always do your best. Think about that. What if you just did that tomorrow? Be impeccable with your word. And that's what I was trying to do early on when I was dealing with my speech impediment. Don't just meander. Don't just go on. Don't tell crappy stories. Just be specific about what you want to say. And if you can find an artistic form of rhetoric in the midst of what you're trying to say, then you might be able to hold somebody's attention for more than 13 seconds. That was some of the stuff that I was learning early on. And don't take anything personally. Like, holy smokes, don't we take everything personally? That chapter was a bear for me, as I recall. But, and I still do a little bit because I'm a human being, but I try to do less of that. And then assumptions, my friend Scott Morgan and I came up with this phrase called fatalistic futures fantasies. And so what happens a lot of times is when you're nervous or freaked out or frightened or worried about the future, you have these fatalistic future fantasies that put you in a mental state that creates anxiety about something before it even happens. Yikes. And so, and then always do your best, because your best changes from minute to minute. This is a beautiful, beautiful book. And if you haven't read this book yet, I would say get it. Tuesday with Morries. This was very famous. This guy did a little, TV tour. It's just an amazing story about a young man, and the lessons he learns is from an older gentleman who's dying, right? And that's more than I'll say about that. But it's a cute little novel. It's just an amazing thing. And Mitch Albon. Tuesdays with Morries. It should be on your automatic reading list, along with this one. All right, I'm going to get through these. Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was I think Auschwitz or Dachau. I'm not sure where he was, but it's just a story of his journey, going through Nazi Germany, and the relationships that he created with his captors. Not good, but he learned to forgive them and to love them anyway. I mean, freakish. This guy was he's like a saint, an absolute saint. And I did a lot of I was underlining stuff all the way to the final chapter. Do you see those lines in there? This book blew my mind. And the reason why this is such a, look at them all. Stars and underlined stuff. It's a powerful story. It's a great storyteller. Look at all that. I could not underline and star enough stuff. Let's see here. Yeah, so I understood these because this is what he was going through when he was in Dachau or Auschwitz. I can't remember which one, but yeah, that's that one I should reread for sure. It's been a long time. Really powerful stuff. And here it is. You hear his story about what he went through, and you go, "Oh, okay. Well, what am I? I got traffic. I got a kid who's got a tattoo I don't like. I mean, shut up. It's just it just changes your perspective about what you're dealing with, and you think it's the end of the world. In reality, it's not. It ain't what he went through. Not even close. Okay. This is a great one. We're talking about brain. Sanjay Gupta, just a brilliant, lovely, amazing, honest, thoughtful, curious, smart, wonderful human being. I know his brother a little bit. I've never met Sanjay. I was on his podcast a while back. But this is like my other favorite book, John Rady's book, Spark. This is kind of his version of it, his perspective of it. They talked obviously a lot about physical activity and how that affects the brain, about reading and about, just being curious and surrounding yourself with different cultures and just trying different things and, just going and doing stuff, I don't know what I obviously liked that page. Here's what I'm going to read this. Hopefully I won't stumble through it. According to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, fully 80% of Americans don't get enough regular exercise. What a shock. I like this one. Only about 23% of men and 18% of women meet the recommended requirements. The people most likely to exercise between the ages of 18 and 24, almost 31% of exercise. Did I read that right? An analysis of U.S. adults age 50 to 71 found those who had exercised between 2 and 8 hours a week from their teens through their 60s, hey, that's me, had a 29 to 36% lower chance of dying from any cause over the 20-year study period. Thank you, Sanjay Gupta. No shock. I made note of that page. And then, here's some other books that I've mentioned a million times. Full Catastrophe Living. One of the interesting things that I've learned later in life, after I got sick in 2018, 17, I don't know, is that I was, burning the candle at both ends. I went from a guy who was afraid to do anything to a guy who was doing too many things and saying yes to everything and getting really stressed out because it all wasn't going as well as I wanted to. So I was past the simple mind part, and I was well into the inquisitive, curious mind part, but I didn't know how to say no. And a lot of the things, a lot of the spiritual books, like Viktor Frankl's book and Tuesday with Morries and the Four Agreements and the Power of Now, that information was not being applied. And I had to get sick as a dog, and I had to read this book to learn how to slow it down again, and learn how to breathe, and learn how to meditate, and learn how to be in the moment, and learn how to be present again. And that's what the one thing about John Kabat-Zinn's book, Full Catastrophe Living, did for me. If you plan on reading that one, what I fold here, let's see what I got here. Oh my gosh, I like that page. That was a good page, and that one too. Let's see what I got here. Oh, look at this. This even got a star and a circle on there. I'm going to read this, see what happens. You don't need to try to get anywhere when you practice the body scan meditation, or any of the other mindfulness practices. You only need to really be where you already are and realize, i.e., make it real. These glasses, I need new glasses. In fact, in this way of looking at things, there is truly no place else to go. So efforts to get anywhere else are ill-conceived. They are bound to lead to frustration and failure. On the other hand, you cannot fail to be where you already are. Oh wow, that's some deep crap, man. So you cannot fail in your meditation practice if you are willing to be with things as they are. I mean, what? That's so good. I hope I didn't butcher that. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people are frustrated with yoga, and they're frustrated with meditation and breathing, is because they don't like the fact that they're not in some kind of Zen place, so they start judging what's going on, when what's going on is exactly what's supposed to go on. But if what's going on isn't favorable to your brain, then you ruin the moment by judging it. Same thing with exercise, same thing with everything, same thing with a situation that you happen to be in with somebody maybe that you're having a difficult time with. Like that difficult time thing that you're having with that person or whatever, that's supposed to be like if you're doing your best and forgetting the rest, right? And you're not making assumptions. I'm getting back to Don Miguel Ruiz. Then the uncomfortableness of it, the awkwardness of it is perfectly what it's supposed to be. And if you understand that, you know that, then you are not a simple mind anymore. Your simple mind is gone. But if you are somebody who is always in the midst of angst because things aren't going the way you want them to go, and you have all these expectations and all these assumptions, and then you're in a constant state of ick, right? Being uncomfortable is what exercise is. But we do it anyway because we know of the norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, brain-derived neurotropic factor, and we know that hopefully, if you're consistent with it, you look better in the future. And so then if you're physically, mentally, and emotionally better and able and strong and fit, then you can go have a cool life. And when you when you go to Italy with your wife, and you're in Rome, and you're on a bike, and you're on the Appian Way, that's a thing you never forget. And that all comes from the little things. I'm going to carry the little things that you did along the way so that you could go have this cool adventure. Like this past 10 days, I'm in Jackson Hole, and I'm skiing with rippers, and I'm 65, and I'm right there. They're behind me sometimes. Sometimes I'm behind them. But I'm doing things that are so exhilarating and so fun. My brain is so capable, so open-minded to what it is that I'm doing because of all the little things that I've done along the way to get there. Now, the skiing is a physical thing, which is just one. Getting in front of a camera or 3 cameras at a time and then running through a workout, right? Can you imagine me trying to do that if I didn't do all the little things along the way to be able to get there? There's a lot of trainers out there. They got degrees up to yin yang and they're certified, but on camera, they haven't done the stand-up comedy. They haven't done the Second City LA improv group. They haven't taken acting classes from Ivor Francis and Daryl Hickman and Brian Reese. Right? These are names that you don't know, but these are people that have a massive impact on my life. I would go to these classes, would get on stage, I would, do improv in front of an audience, a theater filled with people, and, can you imagine me with a speech impediment in junior high school, even imagining that I could do any of those things or try any of those or even be that guy? No shot. No shot. So let me get through the books and I'll finish what I'm going to say. The Magic Lamp. Hello. If you don't know who you are and what you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing, you didn't read this book, man. Here it is. Keith Ellis. So teeny tiny. What did I write in here? Let's see. Oh, wow. Look at these notes. Look at these notes. Wow. Fun times. I think these are Shauna. Shauna read this book. Right? And these are her notes. One of the lessons in this book is write down 20 things that you want to do, who you want to be. What do you want to be? And let's say that you were given those 20 things. Like you could just, you don't even have to work for them. They're just there for you. Just like, astronaut. You're an astronaut. Movie star. Okay, you're a movie star. Like, let's just write them all down and you didn't have to lift a pinky to be those things. Oh, okay. Now, and then what you do is you take number 1 and number 2 and you decide which one of those 2 is more important, movie star or astronaut. Movie star, so whoosh, one of them goes away. 3 and 4, let's see, gardener and lifeguard. Lifeguard, the other one goes away. And so you take that list and then you're down to 1 or 2. Then you have another list, 20 things. And you have to work for these 20. Like, this is for real. You can't, no one's going to give you this stuff. All right. So you have to go to school, take courses, get certified, could take years, right? Doctor, lawyer. I want to be a doctor. All right. Then that list shrinks. And then you compare I can have whatever I want and not do anything with it. And then I have to work my ass off to get a list. And you have to make a decision. And you take that test 3 times. Here's what Shauna wrote. Let's see here. Maybe this is private. I don't want to read that. It's a cool list though. And me, I wanted to be a movie star. And I didn't want to be a fitness guy. I didn't want to do workouts. I wanted to be a comic. I wanted to be Brad Pitt and Jim Carrey all wrapped into one. And I thought that would be cool. And I just did a movie last summer, and I'm going to be doing another one maybe at the end of this year. And, not because, who knows, it's just weird that that's happening. But all the little things that I did along the way, all the acting classes and all that and had a little TV show for 5 minutes for 2 seasons called 360. And I had a co-host with Frightened to Death. Remember the first day, 23 takes, the first opening segment. I don't know why they didn't fire me, but they did. They liked me. They thought it was nice. So they kept me around. They weren't paying me much, but that's it. Just, and it's from these books. It's these books, man. Dan Millman, The Warrior Athlete. Great. They made a movie about this, which is pretty cool. Actually, the first book was The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. This is a later version. But The Way of the Peaceful Warrior was a pretty okay movie. But the book is really amazing. Dan Millman. This was huge. This is probably 83? Yeah, the 80s were filled. 79, so what do I know? I think I read it in 83. The Warrior Athlete and The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's like a little story, but there's so much personal development in it, you can't even believe it. You know what I mean? It's just awesome. It's about this young gymnast who meets this guru who can do all these things. And he's this older guy, and he's just got this deep, profound philosophy of life, and because his mind is so open, and he's worked so hard at being a better human being, that he's kicking the crap out of this kid who's much, much younger than he is. And then, of course, there's that Spark, John Rady. Thank you very much, John. And then he's my friend. He signed it. Isn't that cool? He says to Tony, continue the great work. You're going to change the world. Huh, that's pretty cool. Back in 2013, a while ago. A wonderful man came and spoke at one of my paragons. Just the sweetest, nicest, gentle, brilliant. All right. How did I get to meet him? Come on. And then, of course, James Nestor. I put stuff on my mouth every night before I go to bed because of this guy, man. I learned that not every breath is created equal. All right. Just another opportunity for me to learn about things I didn't even know existed. Like I hung out with a friend of mine skiing, and he was complaining on how his sinuses are all messed up because he's been a mouth breather. The guy's 50 something. And I learned from this book that mouth breathing is bad. There ain't no filtration here. There's this amazing conch shell called your sinuses that filter out everything. All right. So let me just get to this list here. I'm just going to read this from this article I found. So if you stop exercising, it's about exercising the brain. Your neuroplasticity decreases. So you reverse everything. That's positive about how your brain works. You have cognitive decline, and that comes from the greater risk of dementia. Same with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's and mental capacity. Your mental capacity decreases. All right, that's just moving physically that affects the mind. Also, you have a worse ability, worse ability in your life. I can't even read that. It's blurry. That's part of it. Your self-esteem goes down. I'm just going to break these down. You have greater likelihood of depression, which of course I was suffering from. You lose out on the ability for social benefits like learning new skills. Increased loneliness and depression. You're terrible at solving problems, and critical thinking skills go down the toilet. And there you go. That's that. That's just a little something I found. Well, anyway, everybody, I hope this wasn't completely all over the place. It kind of feels like it was. But Sean and I were packing all morning and flying all day, and I kind of landed, had about an hour to kind of get ready for this thing. But I did really want to kind of cover this topic and be able to explain some of the things that I struggled with when I was a wee lad, and how I got out of the simple mind place in my life, and I began to sort of become more curious and more inquisitive. And the one thing that I did want to say, which I think is super important, this has been my own personal experience, and I think a lot of you have already kind of had this experience as well, is that, I never equated the physical to my mental and emotional state. I just thought, my brain was there to help me, open up the car door and turn the key and not get lost on the street. And I thought my emotions were sort of random and all over the place. And I didn't realize that the more information that I took in, the more experiences that I had, the more often I said yes, then the more capable I was in general of having situations and circumstances that were more positive. Purely based on making sure that I read all these books, and I tried different things, and I found that it was better for me to, like for example, Stephen Wolf's book, Romancing the Shadow, understanding what the shadow was, and what that part of what that was about. Not only coming up with problem-solving techniques, but it was also understanding sort of the negative part of you. We're not just one thing, we're many things, and a lot of times. There's a lot of people that have these shadow personalities, shadow personas, that they keep away from everybody else, but they're still there. They're inside, partly because they can't be in the present moment. They don't know how to be they're not okay with being uncomfortable in certain situations. So they use whatever, drugs and alcohol and porn. I don't know what they're doing. But they're always, or meds, or weed or pills or whatever it is, to try to mask their ability to deal with what's really going on. And because what's really going on is quite often brutal and hard, and it certainly wasn't the situation with me as a kid. And I smoked my weed and I drank my alcohol and I did all that in my simple mind phase. Because what I was trying to do is I was using that outside source to be able to temporarily improve the situation of things, trying to alter my brain, trying to get the dopamine and other chemicals to flow freely through drugs and alcohol, to feel okay and better about myself for a short period of time. But we all know what the consequences are of that, kids, don't we? Not so good. And everything else requires effort, and it requires planning, and it requires better relationships, and it requires taking information through various means. I mean, for me, you read a book, you go to a guy's course, and it changes things. You read another book, and you write a guy a note, the author of the book, and he writes you back. And so, like, there's these little rewards that happen along the way. And Tuesdays with Amori, my husband and I cried and cried reading that one out loud together. Mary, I know, isn't that something? That book is something, man. And by the way, here's the thing. A lot of us who have simple minds stop learning. They're done. School's over. They got to go to work. All right. And they got a life, and they like to, watch the ball game on the weekends. And then, life, if you're that kind of person and you're okay with that, everything seems to be okay with you and you're healthy and you're fit and you're doing all right, well, then maybe that works for you. But I don't know a whole lot of people where that's true. You know what I mean? That's how you end up with early onset curmudgeon disorder, and which turns into chronic curmudgeon disorder, and then it's terminal curmudgeon disorder. And then you've got a lot of physical, mental, and emotional pain. All right. And so the whole purpose of this conversation is, if you want to get out of pain, physical, mental, and emotional, then you have to learn more. You have to try more things. You have to meet people that you're not normally the kind of people that you would hang out with, right? A lot of people have these very specific groups, and they don't get outside of those groups. And so you have this group think thing, and the group think people who don't do that have simple minds, because they're not willing to learn about other people, other cultures, other religions, other politics, other whatever it is. You know what I mean? And so everything, because there's a lot more anger, and there's a lot more frustration, and there's a lot more depression. And the thing too is, what's happening is, if you're still in simple mind mode, which I was for the longest time, I'm still a simple mind guy when it comes to tech. I refuse to figure out how to do most of it. You know what I mean? It just seems too much, too overwhelming. I'm 65, and but guess what? It doesn't serve me. Doesn't help me. You know what I mean? It just seems like it's just coming at us at a million miles an hour, and a lot of it's just terrible and nasty and awful and confrontational and terrible. But there's a lot of good stuff too, and it all depends on your perspective and how you use it. And if you use it for good, and you use it with a loving intent, then you're on the other side. You're not on the finger pointing, hate filled, you against me world. So it's complicated. The more you learn, the more you're inundated with information and whatnot, it can become a little overwhelming. All right, but here's the thing: I've got spiritual books here. I've got books on relationship. I've got books on not sweating the small stuff and understanding what's the difference between the small stuff and the big stuff. I've got books on how to be in the moment, how to right. And so the bottom line here is, if you start getting outside of your comfort zone and you start trying new things and meeting new people and reading new books, notice if you feel a little bit lighter. Notice if you have more of a sense of humor. Notice if you feel a little bit more ambitious. Notice if you want to try things that you've never tried before. And if that's the case, then the information that you're taking in, hopefully upbeat, positive, loving, thoughtful, carrying real information. I mean, one of the chapters I mentioned earlier is knowing what's real and what's not. And I think there's a lot of people who can't really tell the difference, and so they're really crushed by that. They have a really difficult time trying to figure out how to form an opinion because there's, But if you find out that if you feel frustrated a lot and you're angry a lot and you're finger pointing a lot and you're not exercising regularly and all the things that you want to be doing to be the best version of you is hard, it's just because you don't have enough information. Like, I'm a vegan now. I'm a vegan 99.9% of the time because based on everything that I have tried, all the little steps, all the variations, everything I've done, it's the only thing that seems to work best for me. Like, my knees don't hurt anymore, and I recover faster, and I sleep better, and my love handles are gone that I've always had with a six-pack. Not a good combination. And so, trial and error over time, little steps. And look, you don't have to do what I'm doing, but each and every one of you that's looking in and to do some inventory. Like, between now, what is it now? It's 6:43 my time. Between 6:43 now and 6:43 tomorrow, make a note, 1 word or 5 words, on how that hour before went. Like, how did you feel? Was there anxiety? Was there fear? Was there tension? Was there fatigue? Was there pain? Was there joy? Was there happiness? Like, just write down, like, the next hour and the next hour. I mean, there's a version of that in the big picture. And how do you keep track of the 6, 7, 8 hours that you're sleeping? You just wake up the next morning, go, I got up 3 times and peed. I don't know, was it 3 o'clock in the morning? Like, how was that? Was it okay? Were you okay? Because you understand that that's real, and I'm not, I'm not going to get mad because I had to get up and pee. Some people are like, oh, I had to get up and pee again. That sucks. Well, what are you going to do? Lay in bed and pee? I mean, it's funny that we get really weirded out about stuff that we have no control over. So just write it down. And when you wake up in the morning, how are you in the morning? I'm exhausted. I'm tired. On my shoulder, on my back. If that's the language, if that's what's happening inside your head, write it down. Whatever. You got up at 7 a.m. Between 7 and 8 sucked. Okay. And then I worked out. Oh, that was good. And then I got in traffic. That sucked. And then I was at work and we solved some problems. That was good. Or we went to work and it was a nightmare. And then you do that a lot and you look at it. It's probably because you don't have enough information to be able to make all the situations that are real in your life to be better. Right? And that takes work, and it takes effort, and it takes time, it takes patience. And it takes you doing stuff you're not doing yet. But you want to be happy, I think. Or you can just keep doing what you're doing and kind of meander your way. It's up to you. Anyway. That's all I got to say about that. Let me see what you guys want to say. Oops, cancel that. I bought this years ago because you suggested it, but still haven't read it. I bought this years ago. I don't know what this is, but you should read whatever it was if I suggest it. What else we got? The American Fitness Sync Ho 3 others sent a request. Okay. Waving and waving. I'm doing a lot of waving here, but I don't see anything anybody wants to say to me. It was great. Not all over the place. Thank you, Deb. Felt like it was a little bit. I was going to say, maybe I should just cancel because I'm exhausted from the whole day, but I don't know, I love it. My friend Skylar, who I had dinner with, I hadn't seen in 13 years, I discovered she loves these Tuesday talks. So that's for you. What is happening here? What is happening here? I'm trying to wave, and I'm getting these weird notices. Oh, gosh. Okay, enough of that. Confronting our issues is difficult, but often pruning is the only way that we can properly grow. Pruning. Garrett, what do you mean by that? Am I reading that right? Pruning? Pruning? What is that? What does that mean? Confronting our issues is difficult, but often pruning is the only... Okay, it's the same thing twice. Waving, waving, waving. What else? Anyone? Bueller? I've thanked my uncle plenty of times, Mary. Every time I see him, I tell him about that conversation. He's like, I did? I thought I was drunk the whole time. Oh, you might have been, but if you could pick one book, which would you pick? Oh my God, Raven. One book. The Four Agreements. It's hard. Can I pick three? The Four Agreements, Man's Search for Meaning, The Four Agreements, Man's Search for Meaning, and Tuesdays with Maury, because they're all a little bit different. But okay, there you go. 11 days in a row as a vegan. I feel awesome. Ha. Thank you for suggesting watching. You are, yes. You, by the way, I don't know what you're, Ronjazinski. You Are What You Eat. That movie, man, that'll rock you. Thank you for watching, and I'm glad I didn't cancel. Can you go into why you went vegan? Oh, okay, I can do that. It's funny. I just kept getting bombarded with plant-based athletes. Like I would watch one thing after another. I have friends of mine that went vegan, and their performance went through the roof. Their bodies got leaner. Their skin improved. Their aches and pains went away. It's like, really, is it really the veganism? You know what I mean? And so, I saw a lot of documentaries on it. I saw, You Are What You Eat. I saw that movie, and these things kept on plopping into my lap, and I thought, oh my gosh. And I've tried it twice, but I wasn't getting the right kind of protein, getting enough protein. So then I started doing. Now I do the hemp seeds, and I do the quinoa, and I a lot of nuts, a lot of seeds, pumpkin seeds. I put it all in my shake. And of course, my protein powder is loaded with HMB and vitamin D and chromium. I'm hiccuping because I rushed my dinner in before I chatted with you guys. and I'm a failed vegan twice before, but again, because I wasn't doing it right. But it takes time. Like when you're an omnivore and you switch to plant-based, there's all these things you have to get rid of that you're so used to that taste so yummy. And then you're over here with these plants and you're like, ugh, what am I? I'm trying to think of a plant-based. What am I, a giraffe? What am I, an elephant? But we got home delivery. We find the restaurants that make incredible plant-based meals, and it just there's a transitional period. So don't feel like you have to go right from omnivore to vegan, but just add some more plant-based meals in where you normally would have meat, fish, chicken, or shellfish. And if it didn't taste good, it doesn't mean you quit. You just find another version. And it's So, I had some salmon the other night, and so what? It's the first time I've had fish in maybe 8-9 months. I don't know. And I had like 5 bones. I was a little tiny, there's no bones in broccoli. Thank you for not canceling. We appreciate that. What about your book? Yeah, my book's, the big picture's there. You guys you maybe already have that book. And I could have mentioned that book, but I don't want to be, too self-promoting here. And the one thing about, if you want one book, for example, if you had to pick one, mine is a combination of all these books here. All right, look at them all stacked up over there. There they all are. And look behind me, man. More. Lots of them. And there's more on that shelf over there. You see over there? You can see those or not. But, and a lot of adventure books too. I learn a lot. Joe Simpson's books are really awesome. It's just page turners. He's a mountaineer and a writer. About his crazy stuff that he's been through out in the wilderness. Tony, did you write your own book? Did I write it myself? No, I had a ghostwriter work with me. His name was Denny, and so we did a lot of interviews. And I wrote a lot of the chapter Intensity. I wrote from beginning to end, and I just wanted somebody who was a professional writer to write with, and so I kind of co-wrote it with him. But everything in there was from my head, and he and I also for him, he was more of an editor, I would say, kind of like, where does this chapter go? Where's that chapter go? And we have discussions about kind of the sequence of things. Denny was very helpful in that, and I even gave Scott Pfeiffer Scissors a pass at editing. because he was a comedy writer. And we were going, there's one chapter where I mentioned a president, and I think he put in like Eisenhower, and I thought another president's name was funnier, so we had an argument about that. Yes, sir, pruning, comparing our lives to a plant that we tend. Often you have to prune away, that which doesn't serve you, so that which does can flourish. So that which does can flourish. I kind of know what you meant. It's like separating the wheat from the chaff, I guess, right? What else we got here? By the way, I have more challenge coins for you. Oh, you do, Cody? Get your butt over here, pal. I love me challenge coins. Keep killing it, Tony. You have and are helping so many people. Thank you. There was a security guy at LAX today. He nearly jumped out of his chair. It's really cool. All flak jacket, the whole bit, the uniform, the guns, the pepper spray. He got right out of his seat. We took a selfie. His name was Mo, by the way. Hello, Mo. All right, everybody. Tony's tired. There's no question about that. And tomorrow I got to do a podcast in Burbank on the other side of town at 9:00 in the morning. The day after I got home. Who the heck scheduled that? What are you gonna do? Sorry, trying to make intelligent points over social media is hard. Sorry, yeah. I don't know why your stuff's coming up twice for some reason, Garrett, but it is. And I will wave. Well, there you go, everybody. Simple mind versus the curious mind. So the easy way to know whether you're one or the other is you're happy or sad or you're not, right? You feel like you can handle situations or you can't. You're pretty good at conversing with others with a positive outcome, or you're arguing a bunch with people. The blinders are on or they're off, right? And all that doesn't come naturally all by itself. There's things that you need to do, things that you need to read, places you need to go, stuff you need to try. And if that's not how you're built, then, and I wasn't either, I wasn't built that way, but I recognize the level of sadness and depression and frustration. And I just couldn't live the rest of my life like that. I couldn't do it. And so there's that. Yeah. If you want it, I would say your first book, if you really want to, read Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. It's this thin. And it's just, it's a mind bender. I mean, it's a tough one, what he went through. And it gives you perspective on how to, could be the kickstart for a lot of you. All right. But you all know what they are. Spark, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, The Four Agreements, Keep Sharp, Man's Search for Meaning, Tuesdays with Maury, The Four Agreements, Romancing the Shadow, Tipping Point, The Power of Now, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, The Bridge Across Forever, The Road Less Traveled, Full Catastrophe Living, and Breath. Pick one of them up. You won't be disappointed. Finish the book. I don't care if it takes you 2 months. Each page in each book will give you information you don't have now. If you haven't read any of these books, this first page, you're going to go, oh, whoa. And then second page, you learn more. Third page, fourth page, first chapter, and then you just start living that way, start thinking that way. And by the way, keep in mind, a lot of what you read doesn't resonate with you. So, right, separating the wheat from the chaff again. Keep it separated, right? Doesn't mean you stop reading the book because you read something that doesn't really resonate with you. Just keep on going. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't underline every single sentence in every book, right? I had to get into chapter 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 before I hit the stuff that really hit me, that's how I read personal development books. I go, okay, I'm going to read it. Not really me, this chapter. Boom, this is money for me. Sorry, trying to make intelligent. Thank you, Tony. Have a great night. Thank you all. I just finished P90X legs and back. Oh my God. I got plyo tomorrow night. Looking forward to that myself. Yeah, you guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. All right? Sounds good. See you next Tuesday or maybe beforehand.